I know what button I push. So, if my sound inputs are correct and everything is right, I believe we are now live doing our TTRPG test kitchen. So, how are
Hey,
we
hey,
doing?
hey. Pretty good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I have no complaints, especially if everything is live the way I think it is. That's
Uh,
really everything I had set up for this.
Yeah.
And I think it is going well. What I should do is pop that notification I made over into a couple other channels while we're talking. So I am, of course, absolutely listening to you, but I am
Yeah.
actually doing something else.
No problem at all. I
Let's
can only
see.
speak for the last 10 minutes or so, but the last 10 minutes or so have been awesome. Great.
Well, that's good. That's a good
Yeah.
10 minutes worth of time. Let's see. Do I have a place to put this in other channels? Jess is usually very nice about letting me do that. Off the table might have something. Do, 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 do. Here we go. That's what I'm looking for. We got that. And where does one put this here? Here we go. Okay, so now we got like three different things going.
Uh,
So, Net, I figure what we'll do is we'll start out going over our goals
yep.
for today's stream. How is my web capture doing? Yep, it's doing good. Let's go over our goals for today's stream and talk about what we want to accomplish. So, goals and standards of conduct. Participants are respected. Everyone involved gets the same high level of respect as a person. Everyone will be called by the name they prefer, the pronouns they use, and can use any social media handles they like. I feel like we've done that. We both have our names and pronouns and social media handles, so good for us.
Mm-hmm.
Discussion is positive and affirming. There are no bad ideas, only choices. That
Hmm.
that was better the second time when I said it right. There is no superior game system or method of play. When discussing how a game is built, you can express opinion and ask questions, but the goal of the discussion is a positive, critical discussion of design that improves the play experience and makes the designer feel respected and heard. That one makes me feel kind of tired just saying it. It's like it seems like those should be obvious things, and I wish they were, so that I could just
Yeah.
say that without feeling so tired.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do? And the door is always open. Participants can choose to leave at any point. The stream can end early if desired, and there is a scheduled end to respect the schedules of all participants, which the stream will not exceed. If a participant leaves the stream, they can always return. A break can be taken at any time as needed. And then finally, chat is welcome, but they are optional. This is a stream, so it has an audience, but the first priority is participant safety. The second priority is a productive, affirming discussion. And the third priority is interacting with chat. That interaction is in the interest of adding to the discussion and growing social followings for participants. Because we're just that honest, really, about what this is all
Yeah.
about. So, we're here in the TTRPG test kitchen, which I gotta say, like, we're hitting our brand quite a bit better. I think this is much more what interests either of us than just like talking about game design. Like if it doesn't
Yeah.
have a certain amount of like dice and cutting boards and things like that, like what's the point?
I know. Yeah.
So yeah. Hey, thank you. We like it too. We're very happy with this picture of dice and a measuring cup and a cutting board. We did this last time and it was just game design talk and it was bland and
Yeah.
flavorless, like most of the dishes I would cook. So we're spicing it up and we're making it a little bit more interesting, and that's where we're at today.
I mean, only speaking for myself, it makes sense because I cut my teeth on hacking a certain cooking game. So just to double up on the puns there.
Yeah, so we've got that kitchen contest game. I mean, I like it because it's one of those things where it speaks to me for being something that's fun and
Yeah.
competitive, but it's not conflict directly.
Hmm.
And there's so much like opportunity for expression and understanding that's gained through it because you can't
Yeah.
just cook one thing. And if you can, great, that's cool for you. I can't cook just one thing. Um, you gotta like try some stuff and see what you like.
Hmm.
So that's why we're in the test kitchen. Also, the Bon Appetit test kitchen right now in quarantine is the single best thing in the universe.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I was watching their variety show yesterday. I didn't think it would be good, but I ended up like watching it twice over. It's so good.
how can you not be happy with it? I watched the one where Sophie makes dumplings in her house, and it's like,
Yeah.
first off, I love dumplings and I am bad at making them, but then second off, watching like the improv and the camera setup and just the feeling like you are not totally ready for everything, man, I related so well to that. That's like everything in life, and I love seeing people suddenly become streamers. It's so fun.
And with that specific one, she like shared the real pro tip secrets with how to get the crispy skirt. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
only learned how to do that like a couple months ago. So I was like, oh wow, so this isn't a thing that this one cookbook author had just made up. I guess it's an actual thing, but I've only seen it more recently.
I never go to the fancy dumpling restaurants where you get the skirt. I
Mhm.
only go to the cheap dumpling restaurants where you get a dozen dumplings in like a donut box. That's like what I want, and I want to pay like less than $12 for that dozen dumplings. That's ideally where I'm at. But yeah, it
I,
looks so good.
yeah, I only go to the fancy dumpling place like once a year for my birthday, and that's it. Like, because that's the only thing my family can agree on for the birthday, and like I'm just like, we all are like have somewhat like this place, so we're not going to spend an hour asking, what do you want? No, you pick. No, you pick. Let's pick three things and pick from that list. Like, no, like the dumpling place. Let's go.
That's my family with the Moroccan restaurant we go to each year for my birthday. Same thing. It's like we go to the Moroccan restaurant. We all like it. It does what we want it to. I mean, what more could we want?
Like, I love this
So
the fancy dumpling place, but like, if anything else, like just avoiding the whole conversation of what to do is the main benefit.
yeah, I agree. So hey, Scrat. Okay, Scrat,
Oh,
you're here in chat. Thank you for coming. I want to tell you I am currently using the Skype NDI setup. So, if you ever have any opinions on this, we're both using that. It's totally different. We're not using Zoom, etc., etc. So, anyways, provided you may have heard that at some point, and we have some sort of time delay going on, of course.
yeah.
So, we're here. We're doing a game design talk. We have a format that we agreed on last time, and that
Yes.
we're looking at now. We have introductions and vamping, check. We're
Yeah.
supposed to share something, if anything, we worked on this week, game design or otherwise. This is assuming that we have any idea what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Scrat doesn't understand dim sum experience yet, but he will one day. Specifically the experience of trying to deal with somebody who's serving you things on a cart, and like how they come at you if you don't
Yeah.
like the idea of what they have on their cart.
Yeah, yeah. And then somehow they want and need to be there, but they also don't want to be dealing with you. But they're also like, if you get on their good side, they're like your best grandma. Like
That's
it's
true.
a real toss up, but it's a fun gamble.
Yeah, and you
It's all
do
part of
kind
the
of get
experience.
judged in terms of what dishes you like. Like if you're
Oh yeah.
picky, they don't like that.
No, yeah, yeah. If they're trying
The
to push something on you, like if they got excess of something and they're trying to push it on you and you don't, like just let them give it to you, that yeah, you'll get the looks from across the whole dining room.
The other one I love is when you've had like the same person has like I don't know, like the fish or the chicken feet, which is not a favorite of mine. There's no judgment there, just I don't really like it. And then they come back a couple minutes later and they have like the tripe. And then they come back a couple minutes later and they've got something else like it's just not your style.
Yeah,
And then finally they'll have something I like, but it will be cold. And I'll look at
yeah,
it and be like, that has been around the room like at least 5 times. I do not want that.
yeah,
And when they show it to me and they're disappointed, it's like, I am really, really sorry, but that's not something I can take. And then the look, and just
yeah.
like the extreme, extreme disappointment. Um, since we're live, I am of course having a tech gremlin where my monitor has decided one of them will show and one of them will not. So if I'm looking off to the side and seeming distracted, it's because I'm trying to convince my display driver to show both monitors again. Um, yeah, it shouldn't be too long.
If
But
nothing else, I'm learning that we have to go to dim sum now together, so that
oh
I
my
can get
gosh,
I can like get all the chicken feet and the tripe that you don't want,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
to clear out their carts. Yeah,
Well, the other thing is often when I go to dim sum, I am going to go with my family, and nobody in my family except for my dad will eat any of those things, and he does it in like the most I don't know, not dramatic, but like he has to do it in a particular way. You can get table service for dim sum, but that's like a small dim sum restaurant.
or like a very high end dim sum restaurant as well.
Yeah, that's true. It could be a very high end, like, what do you want to order? Like you're going to a sushi restaurant type thing.
Yeah,
My most favored experiences are what they would consider Hong Kong style dim sum, I think, which are typically a trolley system. So
yeah,
you have someone who is going to bring the food around and they're going to react to what things you decide you want to order or not. And it will be passive aggressive, yes, I think is fair.
yes.
Yeah, as all grandparents likely should be.
And the more
So,
authentic those types of places are, the more you'll see the customers going across the room to go up to the cart where they know where the thing they want is. They'll be given these hot like metal trays of dumplings and walk all the way across the dining room back with these trays, like struggling to keep them because they're so hot, but they're fresh, so and they don't want to drop them because they just paid for them. But and because they don't want to wait for the trolley to come all the way back around.
Yeah. And now I've had this level of trolley style dim sum in London at least, so I know it exists in the UK. It just may be a matter of like town size and like restaurant size and so forth. But also when people do that in your experience where you have seen somebody walk and get their own food at a trolley, like what is the level of scorn and contempt that the rest of the room shows that person?
Oh no, when I see that, it's usually like half the room does that, and then it's all the white folks and not the non-Asian folks. They're looking like confused, like, wait, do they work here? No, I'm being racist. They don't work here. They're just
Uh-huh. No, I
yeah.
mean I've seen that, but when that happens in my neighborhood, like people get shouted down. Like you
Oh
better
really?
not be that person. Like you better be somebody's auntie or something, because if you do that and you're not the right person, you are in trouble. I can't pull that off.
I can see that because like if you're the only one doing it, and then everybody else is judging, like you basically cut line. Like they're
Yeah,
supposed to come to around to us, and they're almost in our section. We've been waiting for them to come around,
very much
but
so.
like when
And the
hap yeah.
restaurants, like they're tight. Like there's no room for anything except that one cart, and they
Mhm.
are going to hit you with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean I never get that because people would riot.
The one that I've seen that most, where like folks will go and get the dim sum themselves, is like one of the biggest dim sum restaurants in San Francisco, which I was super hoping to go to when I went up to Big Bad, but Big
Which
Bad's
one
not
were you thinking about
happening.
going to?
I do not know the name. I know exactly how to get there. I know exactly like by memory how to get there just from like
Okay.
I don't know. It's like deep in my GNA, but I have no idea what
Yep.
it's called or anything. I just know it's got like these big dramatic red carpet stairs and like the red and gold like decorations and everything.
Is it
And
on the like proper Chinatown street?
yes, it is.
Okay. Is it the Four Seas?
It might be. That sounds
50-50,
familiar.
it's the Four Seas. They're really cool too, because then you have three levels of dim sum seating, and
Yeah.
I guarantee you there are differences in who gets what on each of those floors. I
Yeah.
am positive from my experiences there. Like I walk downstairs and they have the good stuff, and like
Literally just reappeared all of a sudden.
cool. So yeah, there's a lot going on with that, but we could just talk about dim sum for the rest of the stream.
I mean,
That
we
would
could.
we really can, but we don't have to either. So generally, what were we on? We were talking about what we worked on this week, and then somehow that became dim sum. Okay, it's Scrat's fault. That was Scrat's doing. So yes, we've worked on some stuff. We're going to admit to that, and then we have a main topic, which was experience and character growth, especially systematically. And then closing statements, which is probably just us shouting at each other again, which is what we've done the entire stream. Uh, Man, really, realistically, we should just talk about what Chad is talking about with this. Okay, so imagine a train set that goes around for dim sum. That's
Mhm.
pretty cool.
So what's it? The
Sushi boat?
carousel sushi. Yeah.
That's what it's making me
Er,
think of. Sushi boats,
mhm.
yeah. That's pretty
But on
cool.
trains, because trains fit like China, like I guess like recently British colonized China, Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Trains fit a little bit better and are a little bit more aesthetic. Like I like the aesthetics of old trains. Like okay, why not?
The other thing that's interesting about the whole sushi boat system is when you're at a restaurant where they actually charge you based on the plate.
Mhm.
The first time I experienced sushi boat was in Japan. I was in Kyoto, and when I was there, they did the sushi boat. This is how the Japanese mindset is different than the American mindset. In China, or pardon me, in Japan, we went there. We did the sushi boat, and they just charged you a flat rate when you went in the door, and it was a
Okay.
reasonable rate. It was like twice the cost of a hamburger, something like that.
Wow.
And I ate like 5 plates of sushi. The average, I think, was about 3 plates of sushi per person. No
Mhm.
one went crazy. It was a totally normal experience, and it was
Yeah.
just a meal that people had.
Yeah.
Here in America, if you go to sushi and it's some sort of like sushi, eat all you can, we like fast for a day and like, run back
Oh
and
god.
forth, wind sprints before we go inside. You know what I mean,
I feel
right?
called out. I feel really called out here.
And then the next thing you know, you're at this sushi buffet and you're just eating as much as you possibly can. And you're like taking the rice off and dropping it on the plate so you can eat more
Oh
fish.
my god. Oh my god.
We've obviously had the same
Oh,
experience. We've both
too
done
real.
this.
Too
Yeah.
real.
But no, in Japan, they're like, here's a sushi buffet. I will eat the same amount of food I would eat if it was not a buffet. And now I am done.
Mhm.
Similar in Japan, the thing I also love is the Coca-Cola machines. They have like a American ounces. Sorry, Scrat, I can't do British stuff with this. Like a 14-ounce can, like a 12-ounce can, and like an 8-ounce can. What we see now is these like Coke minis, and
Yeah.
they are all the same price, and you just dispense whatever you like. and I sat next to one for an hour because this was actually during a sociology class. Like that was what I was there for. So I sat next to one for an hour. I was the only person to buy the not large size. No, no, wait. I was the only person to buy the not small size. I said that wrong. I bought a large size because obviously I
Yeah.
understood American capitalism.
Yeah.
Everybody else bought the smallest can, drank the amount that they needed to be refreshed, and immediately deposited it in the recycling bin. They
Yeah.
didn't like walk and drink either. They stood there, drank their Coke, left.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I haven't been to Japan about myself, but I watch what's his name, Mike Chen on YouTube, who always goes to Japan and all he does is review 7-Eleven food, which I think is for some reason just the best thing ever.
Wow. Wow.
But like he talks about like how walking around with food and drinking food like while walking is not a thing, is not the done thing. Like if you buy things at the vending machine, you or at the 7-Eleven, you either eat it there or you find like a park to eat it and then you dispose of it. You don't like walk and eat, which is like interesting because like it as it does I imagine it cuts down on like littering and things like that, and it's like it's just easier, it seems
Yeah.
like.
Also, judging by anime, I think we're all the bad student in class based on what we see as anime tropes and how we eat in America versus, say, Japan. I think we're all bad students and like we should be ashamed of how we're living our lives. So,
I mean,
interesting.
I in the last couple of years have transitioned to like the Coke Minis, and I can't really do any more than that myself anymore. I've been pretty good about like moving over to water and like mini Cokes, but I do splurge on like Thai tea bobas. I'll max out on that because like it has tea in it, so it's healthy. That's that's how it works. Just ignore
Yeah.
all the condensed mixture.
All right, typing in chat, pardon me. So we're on talking about what we may have worked on this week. So you had a really cool game design thought that's come together this week, and I think, especially based on our premise, this is something we should discuss. So do you want to lead off?
Yeah, so I had an idea this week because I had watched a couple Ghibli films, including Spirited Away, and I, for some reason, just thought, like, hey, what if instead of gold for XP, food for XP? Because, yeah, because I like food. And
There's
we're in
no
the
reason
test
this is
kitchen,
wrong in
and
any way.
we're doing rewards. Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, so like I came up with I started out with the high level stuff with the
Thank
setting,
you. I am very
and thought
busy.
about like your spirits in this world, like you need to eat to sustain yourself, and but like in order to get food you need to work. And then I came up with I because I started studying level and I want to be pretty hyper focused, I came up with two different game ideas that are still in like the draft form. One where your like player character is running an inn or a restaurant or a tavern, like a fantasy inn and tavern, and then the other game is your adventurers like going out and hunting for rare ingredients and things like that. And the kicker is that they interact with each other. The people running the inn buy ingredients from the hunters, and the hunters sell to the ingredient players. So like uh, there is a world in which people who would play this game if it ever comes out, hopefully, would
Hmm.
have players with a character each of people running the inns and people hunting the ingredients, and then they would have moments where their characters get to meet and interact with each other, like sort of some weird hybrid troop play, but without the characters just dying off in order to play the next one.
No, I like that because I mean, again, we fix ourselves in that a lot of times. This idea that if we play a game, we have one character in this game, and that's cool. But there have been a lot of successful, like they call them troop style play games or games where you play different parts. And if you listen to a lot of like actual play podcasts, some of the best ones are ones where if they have improvisers as the participants, they play multiple different roles, and you get to see a lot of different sides of people.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. I also like the idea of you got this whole ecosystem of like, this person delivers to this person. There's like just like real life, there's like a supply chain that makes it a
Yeah.
little bit more interesting to interact with. And if you have a role, you know why your role works, like what it does. I think that's a really good idea in general for game design.
And then like having like once I came up with this idea, I looked into gold for XP a little bit more, and I like the idea that like having like what you're going for. Like the goal is attainable, it's measurable. Like but I don't like the fiction so much because buying and I guess it makes sense that you're buying more equipment, you're gaining renown, and like people know you because you're fucking rich now. But like I don't know, that fiction doesn't really gel with me. I understand it, but it doesn't like click for me. But food, like no, you eat to survive, you eat to get better, and then just stealing ideas from like NetHack and like other old school games where like if you eat a monster, you might get a special ability. If you eat a beholder, you might get telepathy. Like, fuck it, why not? That's a great reason to adventure and go in the fucking caves, because I want to breed people's goddamn minds.
I mean, you're right. That is why people would do that. And it's interesting, too, because in so many cultures, the idea of what you're eating having properties or things that are good for you, that's like a really important thing. So it's nice to think about eating as being a central mechanic of a game. And obviously, eating is conflict oriented because something is going to get eaten and something is going to be the eater.
Mhm.
But as you go through it all, I think it's a really nice match. I like everything about this premise that you've got. And like the general idea that eating is something that we do, period.
Yeah.
Just great.
And then, like, just in like in real life, when you eat certain things, like, you feel better. Like, if you eat a lot of protein, your body changes by eating a lot of protein. If you eat a lot of fat, your body changes. If you eat a lot of carbohydrates, your body changes. But like, and it just occurs to me now, like, I guess this might be really personal in a way that, like, I'm having this light bulb moment. Eating weird stuff is like something that I, as an Asian person, got called out on a lot. And like, it's like, with what's going on in the world, it's become like a line that I call out in games. Like, don't morally ascribe other people's dietary choices in other cultures, especially because eating bats and guinea pigs and all this other fucking shit that's not either a cow, a pig, or chicken. That's, I don't know. It's like, why limit yourself in that way? And I get, like, there's some hiccups with like sentience in monsters and all this stuff, but like, also, like, different cultures eat different stuff. Like, yeah, like, so I always got called out for eating weird shit, so I want to make a game where you eat weird shit and it's not taboo.
It's fair. And I mean, again, how is it any less valid to eat something rather than kill it and leave it to rot in a dungeon? It's just like,
Yeah.
you know, everybody's got their different things they want to do, but the thing that's interesting to me in general about this game is you get the chance to like explore the world of food. I feel like any of these artistic worlds, like I understand food, and I think everybody at least gets to get some portion of that. You know, a lot of artistic experiences, like you have to have a certain level of comfort with them to really talk about them, but we all eat food.
Yeah.
And depending on how that goes, like you could have a really interesting like basic thing where you start out and you could be like your level 0 adventuring character and you know you eat mac and cheese all day. And you're going to go out there and you're going to try something new because of its many great and diverse properties. And of course, this being the RPG test kitchen, I've got to subscribe to this period as being a good idea. I mean, it's our brand. It's where we're at. But yeah, let's talk about the idea of eating weird stuff. I mean, that's something that people do. When we say weird, what we mean is not culturally homogenous, not the most common option in the food store. I mean, you know, the same people that make fun of people for eating foods that are common in Asia make fun of people for being vegan. They make fun of people for eating organic food. They make fun of you for eating quinoa. I mean, there is no limit to what is weird. There's just how well packaged is it and how popular is it.
And even eating like tofu and quinoa and all these like current kale and all these current health foods, like, no, other cultures have been eating that fucking forever, but they got talked shit on before until white people like started saying like, oh, this is healthy. Oh, we can make money off of this. We can sell this to white folks in yoga pants. No, that shit's great now.
Okay, that's super accurate. That's very true. That's just plain true. But also the thing that's fun about it too is imagine if there is a game like this that somebody who is 12, 13 years old that enjoys eating an oxtail or they enjoy eating like
chicken feet, like we were talking about before. Yeah,
I mean, honestly, when I was that age, I never had that option. When I was, and I mean, if we want to talk about food stuff, when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, you know, there were things that I wanted to try that I didn't. And when I was raised as a kid, there was a strong incentive placed by my Asian grandparents not to act too Asian. You could have yourself a bowl of Chinese food, but whatever you do, you better not try to take a Chinese class or learn Kung Fu or do something like that because your goal was to assimilate to white culture so that you would have an easier time doing everything. Yes, that's a real thing. That's definitely how that goes. So, I mean, yeah, take it back, right? I mean, give yourself a chance to have fun in a game. It's already fantasy. You might as well have fantasy where you get to have fun.
Yeah.
That's just in general a note for this week, I think. You might as well be able to have fun in your fantasy game.
And I like what you pointed out, like the bar for entry so low with food, because like everybody has either had family cook for them, have helped family cook in the kitchen, or has been at a restaurant where like you can see people cooking, or at least like seen in TV and movies people cooking. Like, it's not a foreign concept to be cooking and to be gathering ingredients. Like it is such a core thing to our culture, and like in recent years, it's become a lot bigger. Like as like sort of food porny as scenes and shots in movies, like which I enjoy, but I also understand is like I guess like sort of pandering. But like fuck it, whatever. I enjoy it. It's become more relevant recently in a lot of our cultural like sort of media recently, but like that wasn't always the case. But like everybody eats and everybody like knows of cooking and everybody knows that food comes from somewhere. So like exploring that and like diving into that and really digging your teeth into it seems like an interesting concept to me.
Yeah, and I want to talk about two things there that I think are important too. When we talk about everybody having access to food, if you don't have access to somebody who cooks in your family, I don't want to judge that person, but
Yeah.
that is something that personally I would feel sorry about because I feel like it's a skill that when you don't have, it makes a huge difference.
Mhm.
And it's nice to be able to prepare a basic meal. It doesn't even have to
Mhm.
be fancy. But of
Mhm.
course, we do judge people when their level of cooking is, I can boil water or I can make top ramen. Versus like, look at me, I'm now making my own bread and I prepared this like ham that I smoked in my backyard. I mean, we judge people based on every skill there is. In America, it's very important to tell people they are bad at things so that you can feel superior.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that sucks. But also, a really interesting thing for me is I have kids. And so, with that, I've learned something about the school lunch program and doing all this
Mhm.
stuff. And there are some families where you're just not going to get a chance to see food. And
Yeah.
that's not cool.
Yeah, because like some families that both parents need to work, both parents need multiple shifts. They might not necessarily be there to cook the whole meal every night or at any night at least, and they might be eating more packaged food or going out. But like even when you go out, if you go to like a small burger place or a diner, like a lot of times in my experience at least, you can see behind the counter and see somebody over the flat top cooking. So like there is something there. It's not like I also don't want to ascribe any judgments because people have different access to different things and but like there is the notion is there. Like it's not this is like food and cooking is a lot more familiar of a notion universally than going in a dungeon and hunting down a dragon for gold. Like that's a fantasy we all understand mostly because of Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings movies and fantasy blowing up. But like even before we watch the Lord of the Rings movies, we eat and we experience food and like coming to us either from the microwave or from the stovetop. It doesn't matter, but like food is prepared and we consume it, and we hopefully we can consume it with family and friends that we love and have good memories with that. Hopefully, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, there's been more than one fiction property where they say, okay, we're in a dungeon, but also we're talking about food.
and
You could probably name more of these than I can. I can only think of the Dungeon Meshi writer off the top of my head, but there's got to be other
yeah,
ones that are like that. So you've got fantasy stuff, you've got cooking stuff, and then another big influence you're talking about here is the whole Ghibli franchise. Specifically
yeah.
for me, it makes me think of Spirited Away.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one that like really clicked with me because like there's that moment when Sen and I can't remember her actual name, Chi something, but that the main character's name, like who gets renamed to Sen, like
Thank
she
you.
when she first like comes into the spirit world and like is like trying to hide and escape, and before she comes into the hotel asking for work, she's given this small like food pill, like some like the food pills in Naruto, I guess. I don't know. That might be a cultural thing that I just don't understand. But she's given that, and she's told like if you do not eat, you will fade away. And like that's like even like beyond the fantastical element of that. If you don't eat in real life, you fade away. You start to become very thin and wither, and like you die of starvation. And like and then there's I looking at some sort of breakdowns of Spirit Away, which I hadn't before. Looking into this game, eating like that symbol of eating is like becoming part of that culture. It's like assimilating to the culture, eating the food of the place, and you become more one with that place as you eat more of the food. According to some people who watch the film and like sort of have a better, more academic view of the film, which like really that speaks to me a lot. Like sort of being a Asian diaspora, like Vietnamese American, like I both understand that eating Vietnamese food helps me connect with my Vietnamese culture, but also eating American food helped ingratiate me to my non-Vietnamese compatriots, both in school and work and everything.
That's a really good point. I honestly had not considered that as being a thing, but when you
Mhm.
talk about it in the movie, yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And in Western cultures, it's the same concept. If you eat food in the world of the dead, you're going to stay in the world of the dead. If you eat food in the fairylands, you're going to stay in the fairylands.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing, that this is more of a cultural assimilation problem. And it would be very telling when the
Mhm.
culture tells you, don't eat these foods or else you'll become like them.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
but then
great find.
bringing that up, that's interesting because in like the Fey myth, in the Arthurian Fey myth, when Arthur, as a young boy in T.H. White's Once a Future King, when he goes to see the elves or the Fey, they tell him, "Do not eat. If you eat, you will be stuck there forever." But like, and that's like a rejection of the foreign, and like, do not like get away from your core culture. Do not accept anything foreign. But like in Spirit Away, like it is also foreign, but like she's told like you got to do this to survive, and like she eats it and like seems to come to appreciate it and understand it more by embracing that and sticking around. Like it is
Uh-huh.
partly survival, but then also there is like sort of a lot nicer like see like like ingratiating yourself into this culture and like becoming familiar with the people who live in it and the food and the culture of it, and like the folkways and forays of this culture that is not of your own, that you like for better or worse that you are part of now and may or may not have to assimilate to.
I've read more than one young adult or fantasy novel where the premise is, oh no, I got stuck in fairyland because I ate that food that I shouldn't have, but it was also
Mm.
delicious. So yeah, this is a good thing, and it ties in again really strongly with your idea. So we've got this idea of food for XP. So, where do you currently think about that? So, let's talk about the play cycle. You're a character in this game. Let's say that we're talking about the hunters because I think that more dynamic segment of the game, I have dogs barking for a moment, is going to be something that we can experience and understand a little bit more.
Mhm.
So, you're a hunter. You're going to go into the game, initial play loop, you've figured out who your character is, you've done your creation of this character. What are they
Mhm.
going to do?
The play loop for the hunters, I haven't put as much work into the hunters because like that seemed a little bit more familiar because like you could basically run the D&D loop and then
Well,
just
why don't
add
you
in.
talk about the one you want to
Yeah.
talk about instead of me like
Yeah.
feeding you what you're supposed to? Go ahead and talk about the loop that you think that you know where you want to be with, because
No, but like
that's
talking through that like is a
okay.
thing. It's valid, and
Okay,
but like
that's cool.
it's it is like the you could just do the D&D loop where like you go in a dungeon, you go kill the thing, you get the treasure. In this case, it might be like gear because you need gear to be better at adventuring, or it might be food in the form of like rare ingredients. Like maybe if you're delving deep into dungeons, like you get rare funguses and rare mushrooms, or deep under lake trout, things like that, and or you go and get a mind flayer's like weird hippocampal uh piece part brain. I'll have to look into a bunch of like anatomy
You can
stuff
make
for
it up.
like
It's fantasy.
yeah,
It could be something totally
exactly.
different, right? It could be some sort of weird pearl that's in their head. I
Yeah,
mean, whatever stuff we like.
and like if once you like eat some weird monster bits and like the amygdala of a mind flare, then like maybe you'll get telepathy. If you eat the heart of a fire elemental, maybe you get immunity to fire and stuff. And then there's this there's this tension where I personally, like having spoken in a couple different places, particularly this morning, speaking with some folks in the new Asians Represent Discord channel. Go check it out. It's a cool place from run by cool folks, talking about inventory management and things. And but like I like inventory management. I like encumbrance in a very simplified manner. It's not like weighing by pounds, but it's more like slots and things like that. And there is this tension of like, do I bring more gear to prepare myself and then but risk not bringing enough out, or do I risk not bringing enough gear and risk like failing and dying and not getting anything out? But like then there's
Hmm.
also the tension of, do I eat this weird monster bit which might give me powers, or do I go and sell it for a boatload of more food? Do I get like the big power and like a little bit of food sustainability to keep me alive, or do I go bring it back to town and get like 2 months worth of rice, which keeps me alive for 2 months, but like eating this one thing gives me a power and like keeps me alive for like the next 2 days.
Yeah.
And
No, that's good. I mean, that's the
mhm,
classic trade-off of adventuring. If you're doing a X for XP type system, right? It's like, what do I want? Do I want to get the bonus myself, or do I
yeah,
want to, loot the dungeon, get the money?
yeah, because
That's good.
in terms of XP, going and selling the thing will get you more XP, but you miss out on that the chance of the ability or the power. So it's like, do I want like basically this feat level ability, or do I want a bunch of XP, which might get me some other bonus, which I haven't particularly worked out. But and then like and then the whole thing is like once you go and get the thing, once you go and get this weird fungus or like the weird brain bit of a mind flayer, you go back to town, and the intention is like in one method of play that I intend to like pitch in the game doc is like that they go to the inn that the character's other PCs run, and then of the one of the players gets to run their inn running character, negotiating and haggling with the ingredient hunter characters. So you get that interesting like sort of interaction where like it's players interacting with players, but like they're sort of on the same side, but they're not. They're also like the merchant and the seller and the purchaser and like the supplier and the merchant, like that sort of dynamic where like you're friends but also you got to run a business, so like you got to get the most out of it, but also they're your characters, like you have a reason not to fuck over the other characters because they are your characters as well, which is like it's so I don't know it's so good.
It
Fuck.
has a lot of possibility. So let me
Yeah.
ask you this too. When you think about this situation, one of the things I think about is a hunter type person. We've talked about them being more mobile.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to keep lightweight gear. They've
Yes.
got a hibachi stove kind of like cooking apparatus. They're not going to have a pressure cooker and a gas range and a yada yada yada. They're not going to have all the big stuff.
Mhm.
So do you feel like if you envision this to its fullest, the buff recipes you could prepare for a hunter would be less effective than the buff recipes an inrunner could cook?
100%, because like one of the other inspirations is Breath of the Wild, because there is an expansive, very substantial cooking system in that game, and where in which you get buffs for cooking things, but you are able to cook things better when you're at a camp where there's the walk over the fire, as opposed to when you just set up a fire by itself and like cook things over, like just throw shit onto the fire. So I like the idea that like there's also that interaction where if you bring the ingredients to town to the inn runners, like you can ask them in trade of like in barter that they cook something for you and they give you like a piece. So like they are able to cook those higher level dishes because they have access to a kitchen. They are able to cook more because they're not adventuring. They're more their sort of narratives are more on the domestic side of sort of fantasy life. And yeah, so like but like if you wanted you to survive, you have to cook. Like it doesn't matter if it's crappy or not. Like everybody can take rice and put it in water and at least make porridge. It might not taste good, it might not be the right texture, but like it'll sustain you. Like, and that's like more the hunter's way. And like there might be ways for hunters to get a little bit better, but the intention is cooking is more like high class like cuisine cooking is the in characters sort of bag, whereas getting the better ingredients is the hunter's bag, and they work together to make these better dishes where in which they both benefit.
Uh-huh. So I'm imagining like a couple things. There are things that you have to cook immediately because you need the
Yeah.
benefit right then. I don't know if it necessarily would be because it would spoil. I mean, maybe that's a thing, but also because you're going to go into the next level of the dungeon and you now need this fire resistance you're going to get from eating the fire elemental. Then you've got the things where if you were to bring it back to town, yes, you
Mhm.
could get the super fire potion buff. And somewhere in the middle of those two things is, or you could just sell it for money anywhere and you would
Yeah,
get money.
exactly.
So yeah, you've got so many gameplay type things here that are really accessible, and they're again you're running the whole gamut of like how you can interact with this ingredient. Um, that's real fun because it's a whole ecosystem of like cook, battle, repeat kind of thing.
Yeah, and then of course like because like I because it is inspired by Ghibli and Breath of the Wild, where like there isn't really permadeath, like not for main characters. Like I want permadeath to be opt-in. Like that's a thing that you can choose to have happen to your character, but like it's not really at risk. So like you're basically always going to earn enough food not to like fade away into nothingness. But the if you do that, if you just kind of skate by and do nothing, then like you're an NPC. You're a farmer. You're like the basic cook. You're the line cook. You're not like that's not adventure life. That's not the purpose of playing the game. The purpose of playing the game is to reach those higher levels of like the inrunners. I imagine like end game is owning your own establishment, running your own establishment, having a lot of regular customers coming in, high end regular customers, or just friendly ones, being satisfied in that way. And then hunters, like, they get to be big fucking heroes, and like they get access and they get comfortable, and people buy them drinks to hear their stories and all this shit.
Yeah. That's real good. And I mean, that's how we should think about gaming too, is it's not like a PC is necessarily a superior person in the game. Their
Mhm.
motivations are to be out there PCing,
Yeah,
adventuring.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a very good distinction. Um, with this game, when you think about these characters too, like how tight is the idea of how would one retire? How would you go from that player status to that non-player status in this game? What's your thought?
That's something I haven't gotten too much thought in. Like I could half-ass it and just be like, you hit level 10 and you retire, and like you get to narrate the rest of your character's life. That's kind
Okay.
of that's like an easy way out. Like it's not bad, but it's kind of what happens in almost every other role-playing game.
Yeah,
Which,
yeah.
like, in this, I think there could be something a little bit more interesting, since you are so invested in the game loops between the characters, and then you do have like these intended goals of owning an establishment and like getting some more renown and things like that. It's not like a D&D game where like you just get to where it's just your one character, and like you either die fighting the big dragon at the end of the game, or like what's his face, the lich, uh,
Uh-huh.
Serac. What the
I
fuck is his
mean,
name?
the lich is
Is that
plenty, right?
complicated?
It's
Yeah,
a lich. Somewhere there's a
yeah. You
lich.
either you either win, or you either win and get to tell your story and like people buy you drinks, or you just die into nothingness. I want the adventure, if they want to. Or if they don't, they can opt for the heroic death. Like I am personally a big fan of the heroic death. I would like all my characters to die heroic deaths, rather than just live and retire and get old and sad, and their bodies starting to fall apart, and like all their friends are dying off. Like, yeah, that's getting to. Sorry, got a tangent
No,
there,
it's good. It's
but
good.
yeah. But no, like that's one way for the hunters to go. But like I feel like they there's a way for them. Like, I mean, if they get rich enough and famous enough, like they can invest back into the restaurant or the inn and tavern that the inn runners have, since they have an establishment, and like they can continue that sort of copacetic relationship.
Okay,
There's so I,
that's good. No, okay, so here's what I was thinking. This is
mhm,
my careful segue into our experience and
yeah.
character growth topic, clearly. This is our main topic now, but here's another thing. The thing that's fun about defining all these different roles in the ecosystem of eating food is what if you just decide you want to change it up? Like the classic Powered by the Apocalypse, pick a different playbook. Can a hunter become an inn runner? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. That's what I was kind of I could see, like, I guess I was kind of getting that in a very roundabout way, where like they invest in the inn, and like
sure.
while they don't have the experience, they could be like sort of the rich famous person that endorses this restaurant. Like, hey, I own this place, buy my food. You know me. You don't know shit about this restaurant, but you know me, so that's good enough for you. That's advertising.
I
That's
also
how.
love the idea of them having a zero level in running character now. They have no
Yeah,
cooking skills and no idea how to run this business, but
yeah.
they have $1 million. So
Mhm.
now their goal is to somehow translate that into success. That could also be a very fun play loop because if you understand how the in runner class goes from previous play, you could kind of like infer some stuff and so forth, but you're
Mhm.
going to mess up a lot.
Yeah, because you
And
don't have the skills. You don't have.
right,
You don't know how to. You don't know. You don't understand wok. Like, you know that like they put it in the pan, or like for some reason they put oil in the wok and then they dump it out. But like, why do they put it in if they're just gonna dump it out? And then they're doing this weird tossing thing, and of course we get the picture of the adventure trying to do the toss, and like all the food just ends up on the far end of the stove outside the pan. They gotta like
that's what happens
scrape
to
it
me.
off.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think I've just figured out what happened to me. Is I was an adventurer and now I've tried to become an in runner, and that's where all my cooking skills went. Yeah, good stuff. No, I think that could be a lot of fun. Also, I love anything where the idea is having more money makes me better at something, but
Mhm.
realistically, it just gives you more opportunities to fail because you could
Yeah.
buy all the high-end inventory you want and then just really mess it up that first game.
Mhm.
I love that. That's very good.
And that, like, your idea of like one transition to the other, that does play off an idea that I had told you earlier, where in which like there is very distinct the in runners do certain things, and then the ingredient hunters do certain things, and then like an idea that could be in the doc for like a pitch of like, in order to ingratiate one to the other, is having the in runners go out and do the adventuring thing, and then having the in hunters do the in runner thing, and then they're both like super crap at it, but they get to see like how hard it is. So like because there is value in each. Like I very intentionally do not want the in runner PCs to feel like NPCs. I don't want them to feel inferior. They're valuable in just a different way. Just because they don't go out and fight the dragon and the lich does not make them lesser. They have their own place in this whole game loop and in the society, a very valuable place in it because they do know how to sell and how to prepare and how to market the ingredients that the hunters go out and collect. And like sort of that one maybe 2 session thing of having them switch and then be real crap at it, like in a fun, lighthearted way, so that they can go back and appreciate this is what I'm good at, but I also understand how hard the other works is something I'm really interested in. I just don't know how to. Maybe that's like I don't I don't know how to put that in the book as not a starting adventure, but as a suggested adventure that's not on a table.
I think the more it gets played, the more clear that's going to become. I
Yeah.
think that just stays on the dream board until you've got that in place. I think that's a good
Exactly.
idea, though. Here's something else I want to sell you. New Game Plus. When you've been a runner, or pardon
Yeah.
me, you've been a hunter, and now you go running in, and okay, it's going fine, you're having fun, but
Yeah.
you really want to get back out on that hunt.
Mhm.
Back to level 0, New Game Plus, where you give somebody like a double experience multiplier or something like that, but you don't let them do any of their old stat stuff. You just give them a totally brand new character sheet, same name, New Game Plus.
Okay.
If you can
Yeah.
imagine how that works, I think that would be a lot of fun. Like, you could play like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I used to do this all the time. Let me just stretch out first. And then when you
The old-
totally whiff everything, it'll be so good.
It's the trope in every D&D game. You don't fuck with the tavern owner. Of course he was an old adventurer, and like that's how he got the money to start this tavern. But like of
Yes.
course it's been 20 years since he adventured. So like while he has the knowledge there, he might not have the skills, or while he has the skills there, it's like he's out of practice. So like you're like starting fresh, but like you're starting over to some degree. It's like okay, yeah, that's a really good game loop.
In
Oh,
experience and character growth now, a new thing I want player experience, where if you've played X number of sessions of a game, you get a New Game Plus badge. And that way in the future, when you decide you want to play the game and you need a new character, you get to use that.
and then like if the game does get to that point, which let's be honest, not a lot of games get beyond session 3 or 4. Like we would all love it if they did, but games die. That's the fact of life. More games and groups die than player characters, unfortunately. But like if you do get to that point and you don't want to let them go, having that loop where like they get to start fresh and like get that they they don't have to abandon their characters. So like they get that novelty of starting again, but they also get to carry the weight of their actions of what their character did before, and like they keep the renown in things, but they also get that starting fresh and new game again feeling. Because like
Yeah.
at least for me, I my favorite part of any game is like the beginning, the very first like 5 or 6 hours. I played the first 5 or 6 hours of Breath of the Wild like maybe a dozen times, and I loved it. And I do not enjoy anything beyond that. I finished it once or twice, but like really, I just want the very beginning when the world is brand new, everything's new to you, everything's like fresh and shiny. Like even though I've played it before and I know like the game loop that's there, it's still like oh, just knowing that like I'm half naked and like all I have is this stick, and like there's all these monsters that are way stronger than myself. Like I like that a lot. But like
That's
also
super
having
fair.
the weight of having done things before and having some renown in the setting is really interesting and like really fun to play off of.
Yeah, and I mean, I get you, because I've run so many games as one-shots, and I've played so many video games for an hour and then put them down and forgot to pick them back up. I mean, there is something about initial premise that's really got to, like, shine, and I think that's important. Yeah, I want to find a way of making New Game Plus happen in all games now. I'm thinking, like, I need to do that with my D&D games, where I run 4 sessions and then get bored and think of doing something else, too. Yeah, where are your player incentives? Hmm.
Yeah, that's something interesting that you brought up, like having player experience factor in, like because there is like general like having played different systems and understanding systems and system mastery experience rewarding, and I think that's definitely a thing because like I with everything going on, I've had some folks that never have had the chance or the time or the opportunity to try role playing games, reaching out to me asking if I could run for them, and I love running for new players, but like running for so many new players like in such a concentrated amount of time, it's very clear to me that system mastery is definitely something of value. It is something that helps the game, because if they don't know that, if somebody coming to 5e, playing a brand new 5e game, doesn't know that the party of 4 player characters being outnumbered only by like 2 or 3, if it's 4 player characters versus 6 goblins, automatically, regardless of if they're shitty goblins, they're at a disadvantage just from the action economy. And there's something to like telling them like, hey, this is a bad situation, you're outnumbered, maybe you should be careful or run. Like, there is something to that, like being fair and open and honest at a meta level, but like also there's something to them discovering that and like maybe having their characters like get kind of knocked around and shown and like learning from experience. And like, you wouldn't know that they just you wouldn't know that like being outnumbered, like from the 5e text, nowhere in like the 5e books does it say if there's like 1 or 2 more enemies than in your party are, like, you might be fucked. You might want to think about running. Like,
Yep.
nowhere in that says that, but like, we having played that and watched videos and like sort of just talked to each other know that. And it's like, how do you pass on that system mastery without making it cheap and without sort of being too babying, sort of. Well, like, New Game Plus allows for that, where like, no, I was really shitty. I did really struggle and like scrape my knees to get here, but like now I get to do like the early game stuff again, but have an understanding of it. It's like basically getting a second, like going from your first actual D&D campaign to your second, where like, oh no, I understand Rangers suck now. I shouldn't play a Ranger this time.
Well, the other thing that's really interesting with games, a lot of people talk about like a Metroidvania type game or some sort of exploration game like that. I like the idea, but I think one of the things that's really missing for me is so little of what happens in that game is on a character level. Like in terms of important choices and things that you're really doing when you start out, like so much of it is what you do as a player. Games that you can suck at is basically what I'm describing. Games
Yeah.
where you can just be bad at doing the platforming, bad at doing the jumping, timing, etc.
Yeah.
There's not a perfect analog for that I can think of in the world of tabletop.
I mean, there's like meat grinders, like a lot of OSR games where like your players just keep dying, and
Yeah.
you can either have them like have a weird respawn mechanic that kind of breaks the fiction, or maybe you have some fictional device for that, or they just get to keep rolling new characters. Because like, as for one of the groups that I've been running for that are all brand new character players, they're all brand new to tabletop. I've been running. I started using like Knave and Maze Rats because they're just a lot easier to teach and learn, because they're like 6 pages at most. But they're meat grinders. Player characters will die if they don't know what they're doing, if they don't have an understanding of like the general mechanics and strategies of tabletop role-playing games, fantasy tabletop. They will die a lot. Like, these players, like, they told me they wanted a gritty game, like they wanted some Witcher, Game of Thrones shit. I'm like, are you sure? They're like, yeah, okay. They haven't survived, like, their characters haven't survived more than 1 session yet after like 4 or 5 weeks of play. And like, as much as they say they want to keep doing it, it really shows that it's wearing, like, having them just keep grinding and dying and dying. And like, even me, as somebody who likes high lethality games, I don't think I could stand too long in a game where like my character didn't last week to week.
That's an interesting thing too, is like, what does that mean, right? When you find yourself in those places where you're playing a game and people can die really easily. I have times where I like that and times where I really don't like that at all. I feel like a lot of times the issue I have is more those situations are the question of what is like a fair, like, what is the goal? Is the goal to throw characters at the game to see if they die?
Mhm.
I mean, what part of that makes it interesting? So I have issues with that at times. I can see the appeal for some people, but it's
Yeah.
not always for me.
It's definitely got to be something that you buy into and like your fiction supports. Because
Yeah.
if you're trying to do if you're trying to do like the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon sort of as your game, then dying at first when you first get into the world and everything, that breaks the fantasy, that breaks the immersion. But if you're trying to do like Game of Thrones or The Witcher, dying is a like main characters die all the goddamn time. That is a truth of the world. That is a truth of the fiction. So like if you pitch
Yep.
that to players and like they understand that and you make it very clear, like you are not necessarily safe. Like then that's kind of on them if they decide to buy into that. And like but you got to give them an option once they experience it of like nah, we hadn't tasted this. We'd like to go to the 80s cartoon version of Dungeons and Dragons and
Sure. The other thing that's tough with me for The Witcher, because I do run that game regularly, is the character creation takes an hour and a half.
yeah.
So if you have a game where characters are going to die every session and they're going to take an hour and a half,
Yeah.
they're not going to play that game a lot. So yeah, maybe it depends a little bit. We talked about Ultraviolet Grasslands a little bit because it's on a free offering right now. I was actually going to drop the link in chat if anybody wants to check that out.
It was for 48 hours. I can't remember
Let
when
me
that
check
came
it one
out.
more time. I saw the tweet. I thought we were still good. I should click through. Nope, that's a very good point. It did just end. But they at least make some good points to try to like acclimate people to how death works in the fiction.
Yeah.
And to give you some real opportunities to say like, hey, you really don't want to die. Here's how you make it interesting and you don't die. I feel like this is an entire genre of game. Is games where there is a expectation of death. Is it valid, invalid? I mean, no, it's a choice, right? Just
Yeah.
like if I play the game Kitchen Contest or things like that, there should be basically no chance you're going to die. If you die during that game, that's a choice.
Yeah, that's something you fictionally bought into, and something you fictionally narrated, because like it's not in the mechanics there.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. So when I was thinking about characters going into like a new game plus, I was thinking playing the same route as a beginning character. You get all the same stuff, everything like that. You get more experience at the end of it, so you can level your character up faster. Either way, there would still be an expectation of that. Yes, it is still as difficult, lethal, etc., but you're going to get the benefit of your previous experience. So
You know
yeah.
what could be interesting is like if you are the experienced adventurer in the new game plus of any game, like really, you take on newbies. Like you're the old wizened mentor to a bunch of first level adventurers. So like it's not your lethality, it's not your asset risk because you're basically going to be fine. You've got like the heavy plate that you earned through your own adventuring. They're the ones in like their potato sack shirt and like carrying a pot lid and a wooden spoon to fight with. So like
Okay.
you've like there's the challenge. There's an interesting thing there where like you get to adventure and like you get to teach the new generation. So like that reinforces like the new game and the plus of you being a mentor. But then
Yeah.
there's you want them to level up and like but then you get to still play your old character and like invest in that. But the risk of loss is more on like your investment in these characters and like their lives and things maybe. I think
Maybe, maybe. Did you ever play World of Warcraft? I don't know if this is still a thing, but back in the day when I played World of Warcraft, it was fairly common to get somebody who's just starting the game and you know them in real life. So
yeah.
you show up with your very powerful character and you help them grind the game quicker and get through things
Yeah.
quicker.
Yeah.
As the person who had the low level character because they did not want to spend the time playing the game, I am so bad at playing video games, like time investment wise. I don't do it. So with that in mind, I got to say that is not always fun because then you have one person who's really powerful and they're basically helping you be powerful sooner, but you're not doing it under your own power. Like you're doing it with so much encouragement. The question is why and how and so forth, right?
Oh yeah. I like my thought behind that was like you're mentoring like NPCs. It wouldn't be like other
Uh-huh.
PCs or anything. So like
Okay.
you're like they are a resource to be lost is like the thing. So like you're both like sort of as strong as you were before, but like there is some vulnerability there because like now you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting these baby NPCs that like you hopefully you create with the character as a GM and like have them have some investment in like
Hmm.
who wants to baby a bunch of like shitheads. Like there's some funny in that, but like after you can't run a whole campaign on like mentoring shitheads.
No, I like that. That sounds good in some ways. It may not be the thing that I would choose, but I can see where
Yeah.
that could be a fun thing to play.
Mhm.
I think also when I'm thinking about New Game Plus, I'm going to go through this one more time. Like my thing I
Oh
think
yeah.
of is like the Metroid or the Castlevania,
Yeah.
where you personally go into it with no advantage.
Mhm.
And then additionally, at the end of the session, like you would get more benefit experience-wise because what we want to do is increase the experience curve. We want you to
Mhm.
go up in levels quicker because it
Mhm.
will be boring for you to grind as long as a beginning player.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
had four people who are all playing together, then hopefully they're all reaching the same level and they'll all go through that relatively at the same curve.
Oh, okay.
That was
So
what I
yeah,
always think of it.
like that you would hopefully you would be recommended to like take good notes as a dungeon master on the previous dungeons that they had crawled through or like the previous encounters, and like those dungeons and like those forests get repopulated, like maybe similar enemies but like more stronger because like they now that they sort of took over this land and like they've survived all these other adventurers that come after, like they're stronger, so like there is some challenge for you there, but like you are going through and you're able to like basically like slap their minions in the face, but like the real challenge is getting to them and like the the new end boss at this dungeon where like you're familiar with, like, so you're not exploring this dungeon anymore, like you know the path, and like the challenge is like what's changed here since the last time I've been here, and like what's the challenge that this new creature or enemy or like obstacle that's occupying the space. Is that what you're
Okay,
thinking?
really, yes, because right now it wasn't exactly what I was thinking, but again,
Okay.
I've had a brainstorm while we're talking, which is the best part
Mhm.
about collaborating with people.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my new pitch. It's a OSR style dungeon running game. You will run the exact same castle every single time. And every time you get to the top floor, as you are defeating the end boss, he hits you with the prismatic spray, and you get sent back in time to moment one of the game. And your only advantage is the fact that you, as a player, know what is going on.
Mhm.
And you will run the exact same dungeon. You will still be Mort at level 1, running through the dungeon. You're nowhere near being King Arthur yet. You've got no advantages, no power ups, anything like that. And because of the fact that we know that we, as the GM, are such a jerk that we're going to do this all to you yet again, experience multiplier.
Yeah, yeah. And then like
So
yeah, experience
that's it.
multiplier. So like you're going through faster, but you know you have system mastery basically.
Hmm.
Knowing the environment, knowing where you need to go, knowing the dead ends to avoid, or the places where you get the secret treasure again. But like also there should be like those places where like in a Metroidvania game where like before you didn't have enough experience when you first came through here, but like now you can easily like knock out that cave troll and get past them and see what's in that like sort of lane of the adventure beyond. Like maybe it gives you something else that you didn't have access to before,
Yep.
where like you were the level one times experience multiplier mords, and like the troll was actually a big threat, but now it's a moderate threat and you could take them out. You could chance it if you wanted, or you could do the whole run through again and then just remember to come back later when you have a three times multiplier, and like then it'll be just hand wavy.
Yep, I love this. And then also you get the idea of like the grappling hook or things like that, using your gold for XP system. You know, if you want to
Mhm.
buy the tools, you're going to buy them using your XP. So you can buy your tools sooner because your XP will be so much greater. So you won't have to backtrack the entire dungeon round 3 or round 4. You'll know what you're looking for. Okay, this is going to happen. This is a
I
thing.
I like this as like a different as a whole other game. I like
Yeah,
this as
this
an
is nothing to
independent
do with
game.
your game now. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I've stolen the idea and run
No.
away with it. And New Game
No,
Plus is now
please.
detached from your game.
Yeah.
Yep, yep, yep. Now I want to do
Because
this.
this is way too outside like sort of the Ghibli and Breath
I
of the
was not in
Wild.
any way paying attention to
So
you anymore. I'm
yeah.
sorry. I've gone
No,
totally Metroidvania
please.
on this.
No, we've been talking about my stuff too long anyway, and I think like I've exhausted talking about this game like so far as insofar as like the stuff that I have well developed enough to talk about, and like I'm
That's
glad I
fair.
shared it, and I'm glad like just talking about this with you here and now. Like we've been talking about it for like the past week or so, but just talking about it on stream, I've gotten new ideas that I'm very happy to try and incorporate and think about. But I'm glad I could give you this game. I can help you. I can help you come up with
Yes.
this game anyway,
Thank
and
you. I do
I'm
like the part where we
excited to
both
play
end up
this
with
game.
homework when we finish this game. It's so great. Every time we do one of
Yeah.
these, we end up with homework.
Yeah,
So,
I unfortunately have not done my homework from the last time, but I definitely will sometime
I
eventually
mean, that is
someday.
what I do in game design too. Is I come up with a whole bunch of stuff I'm supposed to do and then I do not do it.
Yeah,
All right, I'm
okay,
starting a new document called New Game Plus. This is going to happen.
do it.
Okay, that's all done now. So that was easy. So because of course that's as much thought as I'm going to give it until the next time we do this stream. But yeah, this week, I mean, most of my stuff has been relatively boring because I'm still working on my whole Clash JRPG idea, and I really, really like it. And
Mhm,
I'm fleshing out a document. I'm
mhm,
adding examples and I'm adding modifiers and just like the bog standard stuff that at some point you have to do. and thinking about stuff and thinking about how I have to change the stuff I have because I thought of new stuff. And
Mhm.
I'm just the most boring guy because this is the fun thing for me is to come
Yeah.
up with these ideas and change them and keep redoing them, and I'm loving it.
No, that's me too. Like that's me with Sharps because like Sharps is on like version 2 or 3 now, and like who knows? And like this game is at some point it was like very inspired by Sharps, but like I'm not sure at the same time. Like it might go through like 2 or 3 more revisions and like just become nothing like Sharps anymore. But like we'll see. Yeah, like and like this week it's like I don't know. Like I did some pretty tedious stuff the last couple days. Like I tedious but interesting to me at least. Like I looked up biomes of Vietnam and like different fauna and different animalia of Vietnam to like get like to build tables of like the different things you can hunt in this game
I
in my
love
food for
that.
XP game.
That's
And it's
so
like
cool.
I wanted to make it explicitly not Europe, but there is a lot of European analogs. Like there are deer, there's like bovine creatures, there's snakes and shit like that. But like also there's fucking what's it? There's like monkeys and there's crocodiles and there's fucking what was this thing? There's rhinoceroses. I had no idea there's
No
fucking
way.
rhinoceri in Vietnam. I knew there were elephants, but I didn't know there were rhinoceros in Vietnam. Like that's like research is like probably one of the best parts of game design.
Did you
So
get any
fucking
indication if that's in like a native species or not?
yeah. As far as I could tell, like
Okay.
it's a pretty native species. Like it's not like my all my research was geared towards like more wild animalia and fauna, like not necessarily like looking up the listings of zoos. And like a lot of the photos seemed like they were like natural habitats and stuff. But like yeah, and like I've been to
Hmm.
Vietnam like twice maybe as a child, and like I spent the whole time inside like underneath a fan, drinking a Fanta, watching Vietnamese TV shows that I did not understand, and like that was my whole experience of being in Vietnam and like
Did you have like
going for fun in the
the
morning.
jelly desserts too while you were there, just like the whole
I mean,
time? Okay, good
I mean,
stuff.
I had them brought to me like a shitty little spoiled American kid, but
Okay, but grandparents do that. It's not your fault.
yeah,
I'm guessing
yeah,
I'm implying grandparents at this point. I don't know if that's
yeah,
true,
yeah.
but if it
No,
was
yeah,
my grandparents, I wouldn't have had to do anything. They would have just given me things. That's why grandparents are awesome.
no. I was the shitty spoiled brat, and like I was miserable the whole time because humidity is a bitch. I like even now if I went, the humidity would still be a huge pain in the ass, but I'd be able to hide the fact that I hate it more.
Right, by staying indoors and just drinking a cold drink, you'd already know to
Yeah,
get to that point right away. Yeah, that's good
exactly.
fun. Yeah, I want to know how Vietnamese people eat pho even in the summer. I don't understand that, but I love it, and I
No,
do it here, so it's like,
I mean, I think summer is like a rainier season there. I think
okay.
because it definitely rained when I went into summer. But like no, pho is like breakfast food, which was like a revelation to me. I was like, I could have my favorite fucking food for breakfast. When it's like I could have dinner food for breakfast instead of just having breakfast for dinner. That's amazing. Like soup for
That's so good.
breakfast. Why is this not a universal thing? Like why? How have we not spread this word
I
around?
didn't know
But
you
like
could do that either, but now I want
yeah.
that too. Yeah,
And
man.
like you eat it for breakfast. Like first thing you do, first thing we did was like go down to like this really this small this woman who's like in a hole literal hole in the wall who has like little tiny plastic tables and like chairs that are only about a foot tall that are made of pink and blue plastic, and like eating pho like hunched over. Even as a child I was hunched over and like eating it in 98-degree heat and like something like 30 or 40% humidity. And it's a satisfying experience. Like you like it's they don't just say it, like you sweat out the heat by eating this hot soup, and it's so good.
I love that so much, man. I want to do that so bad now. Oh man, anything with pho. I had pho yesterday. I very much enjoyed it.
I have not had pho since this whole thing, and like because I we can make pho, but like going to the Vietnamese market is not a fun time because like there's you can only get so many people in there, and like now more recently there's some meat getting issues like obtaining meat
Yeah,
and stuff. So even making it at home is not as easy, and like the restaurants are my I live with my parents. My father, he's older and he has had surgery recently, so I do my best to let them not leave the house as much as they
that's
hate it.
fair. No, that's so fair. You got to do that for them. Yeah, and like for me, I don't. I've tried making pho. I'm not that good at it, but yeah, like you get your Asian markets and so forth. There was a time like when we started quarantining where it was like the place to go because you could still
Mhm.
find everything because it hadn't
Yeah,
been run over. But now they're at the point where it's like yes, but also there is an issue of how much space there is, and they're really paying attention to the restrictions, and yeah, that's a real thing.
yeah, and
Um,
now the supply chain is actually being impacted because now people are like on the supplier end and the producer end are not able to go and collect the food or like produce the meat and things like that as much as they were before. So like, whereas initially it was a getting it to you and getting it to the store fast enough for demand issue. Now it is actually a supply issue. It's turning that way as this gets longer, which
Yeah.
is harsh and unfortunate. But I digress. I was trying to get to ask you. I don't think we went over the experience system for um, limit break system. Shit, I
Oh yeah,
forget.
yeah, for Clash. Yeah, it's super boring.
Yeah,
It's so boring. I don't think it really needs to go over, but it's like a percentile based system, and you're going up 1% at a time at 1 XP. So um, it's really not that fun. I will
I,
switch over to the dock real quick, so we've got something in
yeah,
this window so that people can enjoy not just dice. Let's see. Let's move this up. Let's show this. Let's hide the dice. So hey, how about that? There's Clash. That took me 1 second to do. I hope I've transitioned properly. Yeah, it looks like I did. I'm good. So with that, so Clash, the whole thing that's fun for me is these rankings. You've got the idea that if you have a ranking, you're going to start at like an F rank. If this is not how school systems work in other countries, I'm sorry, but this is the American school system. F is bad. 40% is what you would get to roll, so you're not going to do really well. This was originally like a percentile dice-based system, but I hate that. I hate percentile dice systems so much because it's just so boring to roll under like some value over 100. So now it's you get to roll these active tests. You get to roll some number of dice, add it to your rating. What I want is I want numbers that are greater than 100. I want people to get 100, 150, 170 and just go crazy and just like throw dice down on the table and yell loudly. That's what I want.
yeah. Like
So,
it, like in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter if like you're rolling 2d6 and getting a 7 to 9, or if you're rolling like I like 2D100 and getting 100, but like sometimes it just feels better to like say I got 150. There's just like a satisfying feeling to saying I got 150.
agreed.
I get to roll a bunch more dice. I get like there's like it doesn't matter, but like it matters.
The other thing that
There,
I really like here is I like the idea of the Final Fantasy type systems. You know, this is a Final Fantasy inspired game, and I like the idea that my damage is going to go up to 999 or something crazy like that. So I just want it to feel mildly crazy. So you've got like your D rank. You start with 60%. You roll 3 dice. And then every time you roll a 4, 5, or 6, you're adding 10 more to your score. So we're hoping that what was it, the D rank, that 60% is going to be a 90 at the end. And you're just trying to get really big numbers. Really big numbers is the goal. But then
yeah.
if you want to go from D rank at 60% to C rank, which is 70%, you need 10 experience over time. So that you can go 61, etc., all the way up to 70.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's the whole thing. I did have the idea this week, which I think I like, that you've got. I'm going to try to not scroll while I talk because I know that could be distracting for other people. But you've got skills. Skills are your smallest block. So you have a skill in swords or a skill in investigation or something like that. And if you want to raise an attribute ranking, so let's say you want strength or you want agility, then to have these sort of rankings raise up, you have to raise up X number of skills. So you raise skills to raise attributes, and then those raise thresholds like stamina and will, which are like your hit point values. So this way there's like a progression. Okay, I need to spend so I can raise up these other tiers. And I like that, and it may be annoying in the end. I have not decided yet. We'll see. I just keep doing my math on my side and seeing if it looks like it's fun or not. Currently, it is slightly fun, and that's where I want it to be. I want it to be enough crunch where people have to like really think about their characters, but I want
Yeah.
it to be slightly fun.
I mean, like I was having this discussion about inventory and stuff, but like there was some tangent about crunch, where like crunch tends to be more planning and like thinking ahead, and like I think that's really interesting and like plotting things out. Whereas like the lighter things, like you kind of go with the flow and you're reacting more so, which is
Yeah.
like they're both valid styles of play. I enjoy both styles of play, but like I don't get as much crunch that I enjoy. Like I see a lot of crunch, and like having people buy into crunchy games is a whole beast of its own. But like crunchy games like appeal to me, like having heavy inventory management and having XP buys and things like that, and like I don't know, like there's something satisfying to planning things out and earning like this XP and like knowing that like you worked pretty hard for this thing. Like I get this is enjoyment, this is a pastime for a lot of folks, but like sometimes like there is something to be said for like some effort being expended, like and like system mastery again, like sort of knowing the game and with a crunchy game, like there is a more required system mastery and like understanding the game and being able to understand it in such a way that you can manipulate it in the way you want and get where you want to be, as opposed to like in a lighter system where you're kind of going with the flow, and where in a lot of those there is space for you to make your character as you'd like, because there it is lighter, so it's more modular in things. Sometimes you are reacting, and like sometimes you get taken on a whole different course, which is its own satisfying thing, but like you are being taken away off of the course that you had intended for that character. So like everything's valid, and like it's just preferred styles of play. But like with Crunch, I do see a lot of appeal of like planning and being able to get that and working towards something, and getting that I like within the means of the system being like the idealized self of your character.
We're both people who run and design games, so I think crunch appeals to us more naturally.
Mhm.
I agree with you in terms of what I personally like, but I do feel like my current experience has been it really depends on who you're playing with.
Yeah,
And
of course.
most importantly, I do not like a heavy crunch game personally if other people are not invested in the system.
Mhm.
If you don't know how it works for you, and if you can't figure out like an interesting way you want to build your character,
Mhm.
then that hurdle, that experience, and that change, it can be
Yeah.
really difficult for people. Like I play with some people where they're very where I play with people who have the AD&D, pardon me, ADD condition. Like they
Mhm.
find themselves distracted more easily. I'm trying to think of the way that's correct to say this. What I'm trying to say is for some of the people who have ADD where they're playing games, like they'll make their choices and they feel good with what they're doing, but if they want to change their mind or if they want to read into something more carefully, like
Yeah.
it's nice when people get the chance, like you have to be the right kind of person to interact with that group too, where you don't take that away from them or tell them, oh, well, you should have done that the first time or that kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
And
it's
then in
hard.
crunchy systems, there is the case that like some crunchy systems where if you fuck up early on, you don't realize it because you're new to the system,
Yeah.
but then it screws you and your character like later, and then you either have to like walk it back mechanically or like narratively or like make a new character or something like that. Like, and it's you like you can't be blamed for like not being new to the system and fucking up early, but like that is the case, and like that is like a trade-off, especially. And I agree, like playing with newer players and players who are not as invested as you are, as the rest of the group in a crunchier system is hard, because then it feels like there's not the same level of investment and buy-in and things like that, and like that may not be a fault of their own. Like I have these new players that I'm running games for. Like I would love to pitch them all these super crunchy, complicated games that I've always wanted to play. When they say, "Oh, I don't care, I'll play whatever," but like I understand, like you're a new player. Like if this is your first experience playing a super crunchy game and you bounce off of it, you might bounce off of tabletop games completely. So it's my responsibility to tailor the game to a newer player and like the player type, and like understand that crunchy games are not for everyone, especially brand new players to the community of tabletop games.
I think we've got a lot of things we could talk about here in terms of like, making assumptions about your play group, communicating with your play group so you gain that level of comfort and you really know what to expect. And then also, like, what are your options there? But those are all more like GMing concepts, and I don't think
Yeah,
they're out of our wheelhouse, but they're not necessarily today's topic. But I mean, those are all really good. I'm thinking on my part, like, we're pretty much at our time
yeah.
and we should work on time boxing. But additionally, like, that's a lot of good material to think about.
Because technically, we're still talking about the stuff we worked on this week.
Which is so
It
good.
ties
I
in.
love that.
It ties into like our main topic of like rewards and stuff, because we've talked about XP, we've talked about system mastery rewards and player mechanical rewards and things like that. But like, yeah, like I guess we technically never got out of part two of our 4-part format.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
not
it
bad.
worked well for us based on what we're doing.
Mhm.
So when we come back next time, hopefully we'll have a lot of the same stuff to talk about and maybe even some practice and some experience dealing with these systems. But it's been fun. Now, I did not mention earlier in the stream, we did no intros because we were just goofing around and just went live. You are now a silver best-selling author. thanks
Yes,
to
yes.
I think the agreement was that I have to continue referring to you as a best-selling author at this point, thanks to Unbreakable. So
Mhm.
Unbreakable is now a silver best-selling project. So the silver best-selling author, Nitnack, is my guest today. Thank you. No, we're pretty much partners in this. I call this guest and host cam on my overlay just so I can tell where things are at. And I've agreed to produce, so it's on my channel, I guess. Nothing's going to change. I don't plan on streaming more often than this anytime soon. But do you have anything you want to plug or talk about?
Yes, as Han said, I am best-selling author Kevin Tian Wulong Win, and I wrote an adventure, the second longest adventure, I believe, in the Unbreakable Volume One book, which is now available on DriveThruRPG. And we're all everybody who worked on it. It's Asian adventures and contents by Asian writers and designers, and a lot of the editing and organizing team are also Asian and Asian diaspora, and we're all super proud of our work, and we're happy with it. And I ordered a physical copy, which should be coming soon. And I'm told it is a very thick book, which is makes me very happy and is satisfying. But I also make a couple games. I have a game that I made recently that I talked about last time, Closed Fists, which I made for the Asian martial arts game jam on itch over on itch, and I have an itch store which I make games, and I'll probably once I make a reasonably readable version of Food for XP working title currently. I'll probably be posting it over on my itch page.
All right, there's an
Oh,
Unbreakable link. So there's that one. I'm not
and
fast at this, and I don't have anything automated.
no problem.
All right.
I also posts. Let's see. And I will be later this evening. I will be playing on Vibrant, Visible, Victorious over on the Welcome to the Party channel. We will be playing Microscope.
Nice. Very nice. Okay, yeah, I didn't get to your itch page fast enough, so I should
No
just
problem.
look on itch. Where is itch? And how do
I,
I get to it? There it is.
I've
Where is
got
my library of
shit.
things I own? If you can drop it in the chat links, you're welcome to
Mhm.
do it before I do, but otherwise I will eventually get to it.
Yes, I made the game Close Fist a hack of a very good game by a very good writer and designer. The Kitchen Contest by a certain Hans Chun.
Yeah, I did a game on itch as well.
Yeah.
That occasionally happens. There might be more. We'll see.
Soon to make
I
a,
should
a
have stuff on the
very
dashboard.
awesome sounding Metroidvania game. Hopefully
Yeah,
coming to
I got
itch.
2 games now I've got to develop. That's
Yeah.
always where we like to leave, is with at least 2 games that we each have to develop suddenly.
Yeah.
So, very good.
2 games are willing to share with the public.
Okay, thank you for calling me out for my 3 other
calling my
games that I have windows open for right now.
calling myself out as well. To be fair.
It's true. Okay, so the game designer life is basically just coming up with things that we wish people would play, and if they do play them, we would be endlessly grateful, and we'll consider them our best friends. So if anybody wants to check this out, take a look. Otherwise, thanks for coming. This is the TTRPG test kitchen, where we basically just throw pasta at the wall and hope that it's the correct al dente. I mean, I don't have any better outro lines than that, but that's pretty much our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna push this ending soon button. We'll see a little bit of a different. Okay, I've just realized now that when you push that button, we do lose our audio. I do have to hook that up for the future. But for now, the important thing is if you saw that screen, you know the stream is ending soon. It's going to end approximately now. Nit, thanks for joining me once again for a
Thank you,
delightful talk
Hans.
about games.
Thank you
And
for letting me gush about my new game, my new baby, who hopefully will not end up in the ash can like all the other babies I've had. Uh,
I'll just have.
that's
Whoa, wait.
uh,
Yep.
that's
No.
yeah, yeah. I have regrets all of a sudden.
Right. Well, we're not running for public office anytime soon, luckily. So we'll just, feel that shame internally at least. And yeah, let's go ahead and call it for now. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for coming, everybody. Have a good one.